Rahbin, I'm so excited for this moment. I feel like it's been a long time coming. You and I have had multiple conversations where we've said, if only we had recorded this.
Very true.
I feel so giddy because we're actually recording one of our conversations.
Yes.
So I just want to say, first off, thank you for being here and sharing space. This is a conversation. First, let me just share a little bit about Imaginal Goo.
Please.
And then I want to dive into your story and the things that you've been creating that I feel like resonates with what really I'm calling Imaginal Goo. Sure, it's a podcast, but I really view it as like this audio diary series where I get to really sit down and have these real conversations with women in my life, all of which I deeply look up to, around conversations that I don't think we often get a chance to have, let alone in the context of the world that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
And so Imaginal Goo is actually based off of a very real process out in nature around imaginal cells. And imaginal cells are part of the process within the actual metamorphosis of a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. So when a caterpillar spins itself and spins itself and spins itself into a cocoon, there are imaginal cells that are part of this process where they're in the cocoon, it's gunky, it's messy, it's uncomfortable, it's probably cold and dark and wet, but little do they know that they're actually in the middle of turning into a beautiful butterfly. And so I wanted Imaginal Goo to capture those in-between moments with incredible, powerful women that I know to really shine a light on the reality of growth and transformation. So thank you again for being here.
Oh my gosh, it's truly a privilege and an honor to be here, knowing you all these years and your commitment to women, yes, but also just the process of transformation, such that we have a world that we all want to thrive in, not just survive.
Thank you.
So it's a privilege.
I love it. I can't wait. And for all of our listeners that are tuning in, like side story, I deeply view Rahbin as, I feel like mentor isn't even enough. She's really morphed into adopted godmother, auntie, extended family. So this is really special, a special treat for me. But with all of that, I want to dive into a ton of questions that I have that maybe in the past we've talked about, some we haven't ever shared with each other before. And so, you know, one of the things that I've always admired and loved about you is who you've been for me has been this example of creativity and courage, but also it's never too late and it's never too early. And I know you know that for me, I hate the concept of time. I don't get along with time. I don't know what patience is. Like, it's do or die now. And you've always been this guiding light and quite frankly, also a mirror and a reflection for me to reflect on. And I think one of the things that I'd love to hear from you is, you know, when you think about your life and all the things that you've created, one of your self-expressions in the world is being a high school teacher.
Yes.
And I know you've shared with me that that's probably not something that your younger self would believe about you. I want to know why. Why would that be so hard to believe? And also, what had you arrive at being a high school teacher? Because I also know you as so many other hats, which we'll talk about, but would love to hear why.
Oh boy. Okay. One of the things that I remember wanting to be was a psychologist when I was in high school. I also loved physics and math. In my mind, I had the best math teachers, Mrs. Killian. Ooh. And so in the 80s, dating myself, there was this push to get Blacks into engineering. And so because I loved physics, yada, yada, UCLA minority engineering program, Stanford admits me, I go into industrial engineering, and that is who I saw myself as. I'm math and science, yo, and I'm gonna be a doctor. My younger self would have said, I know you like your teachers, but you're not gonna be that, right?
I don't know that at all. I don't know that at all.
And which is interesting because what I realize in answering that question is that I didn't have a high degree of respect for teachers relative to other professions. I appreciated what they did, but I just saw them as, give me the basics so I can go have a real life. Just, you're here to just get me ready for something else. Mm. And so the idea of being a teacher to my younger self would have been like, that's all you're gonna do? How did I end up doing it? The shortest version is I was a mess. I went to law school, UCLA Law, and I knew that I didn't want to be an attorney, but I thought I would do something in that realm in education because I'd already taught for a year. I became a counselor at UCLA. I did basically counseling for pre-law and pre-med students. And then I got mad because I didn't get the raise that I knew I deserved because I'm an early version of millennial. Ooh, is that bad? Anyway, so I left. I got a different job and married, then getting a divorce. And long and short of it is I was doing all kinds of different things and struggling. And I will actually say I was on disability for a while because I had that level of depression around it. And finally, it was like, okay, so what am I going to do? I was doing something where I would grade these Golden State exams, and so they paid you $100 and something a day, and you'd go to different counties and do it. One of them was in Sacramento. It was one of the hottest days they'd ever had. I'm waiting for the shuttle to the hotel. They never come. Another guy from a shuttle driver from a different hotel is waiting for someone who never shows up. And again, hottest day. And he goes, where are you going? I tell him, he goes, that's near my hotel. My dude didn't show up. Come on in. And I was like, all right. So first thing he does is he looks in the mirror and he goes, you're a teacher?
For those listening in, Rahbin looks offended right now. So she's gesturing in the studio her offense.
Very much. Like, do I smell like a teacher? What ends up happening is I say, well, I was, but but I'm in between right now and I didn't take care of this. He goes, oh, you need to call my fiance. Why? She ends up working for the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. Long story short, within 48 hours, she has me interviewing for a full-time job as a teacher. I was reading the book, I can't even think of it now, but it's basically about finding out God's plan for you. So I was reading that on the plane to Sacramento. And so when it all happened, I went, fine. I literally was like, fine, God, I will be a teacher. One thing I should add that I left out, when I got into law school and I was so excited and I told my mom, she said, why would you leave something you love? And I was offended at that too. It seems that my younger self was easily offended. And so I was like, do you know that I applied to one law school and I got in? Do you know how amazing that is? And you want to talk about me being a teacher? Whatever, Mom. And then I had to call her one day and say, remember how you said? And I have taught now for full-time since 1988.
Wow. Oh my gosh. First off, congratulations.
Thank you.
And I mean, it's wild because I also know you didn't just pop up at UCLA Law School either. Like, you were at Stanford. You are far beyond the four walls of your classroom. You teach beyond your classroom. I guess a follow-up to that is, it reminds me back when I was applying for colleges, I had every intention of getting in just so I could transfer. And then a year went by and I realized, oh, I don't want to leave this school. I actually want to stay. And the question that I remember asking myself then is the question I actually want to ask you now, which is, so many people talk about why you want to do something, but we don't always talk about why do we want to keep doing it. And for me, my answer back then, when it came to the context of school, was I liked who I was becoming. And I wanted to stay there. And I was curious. Partly, I was also lazy. I didn't want to leave and move to a whole other campus. But I guess for you, that's not just a job, that's a career that you just spoke about. Why keep teaching?
I didn't expect that to be an emotional question, but it is. There's something magical. I can even give you a much more simple example. When you design a lesson, the more you teach, you know the moments when they're going to go, oh, and you are planning for that. And I actually also like torturing children. So when I design a lesson, I put in those tough places where it challenges them and they're going to be a little frustrated. And it's intentional because I want them to learn to push through that and what's available on the other side. And when they do, and they are actually engaged, like they've got the foundation, they understand what they're doing, they're engaged with the material, they're talking to each other, whatever it is they're doing, the room is silent. I would just about swear to you that I can hear the hum of brains. And it is a gorgeous sound. It is a frequency. It's addictive. That's why I stayed.
I love that. You know, as a self-prescribed lifelong learner, and like I always loved school. So I'm clearly a masochist as someone who likes to torture their students again.
You see how it's a match.
Yeah, there we go. The universe conspired for you and I here. But, you know, having just graduated from grad school a couple months ago and hearing you say that, it's like, gosh, I wouldn't be where I am today were it not for those moments and those people who, intentionally or not, were a catalyst for me to keep going, to push through. And I feel like in a way that's what Imaginal Goo as a concept, as a infrastructure or this vehicle for change is kind of about, is what are those things in our lives that actually push you forward, whether you like it or not. So thank you for that.
Can I add something?
Please.
I have a former student who's also a good friend, and you've met her, Anel.
Yes.
Anel is amazing. And so we had lunch, I don't know, maybe a couple months ago, and she's going after her doctorate now. She's worked in social work. And so my point, though, is when we talked last time, I was telling her that because our school has now moved to all online education, so I'm much more like, you know, progress monitor and cheerleader to get them going. She was a little sad. She goes, oh, I loved when you teach. I just hated you. And then she explained to me, she goes, because she was really social and she was in all these clubs. And so she would come to me and say she couldn't come to my class because she was doing this and she couldn't get this done because she was busy. And she was in the habit of people going, oh, okay. And she goes, and you would just be like, okay. And then when you're done, she goes, you just were like, no, you're gonna be here and you're gonna learn and we'll work with you. I'll work with you, but the work's getting done. And she goes, I think about that all the time. It made the biggest difference for me. And I'm 3 years out from retiring, and now I'm about to torture my friends if I don't find some other place to do that.
Oh no. Okay, well, that might have to be another episode to talk through that. But I want to kind of pull the thread a bit on something that you just said.
Okay.
I think by virtue of being a teacher, now granted, not everyone does this as a teacher, I would think. Like, not all my teachers were the greatest necessarily, but there were definitely a handful where I was like, my life changed because of you for the better. And sometimes tangled up and intertwined with lessons are things like advice. So I'd be curious, what is the worst piece of advice that you've actually ever gotten? Because I can imagine, again, in the spirit of Imaginal Goo, we're all on this journey. We're all climbing this mountain with no top. Sometimes you got to take those pit stops for advice. Sometimes those nuggets of wisdom aren't really wisdom. So for anyone listening, I guess I'd be curious, and for myself too, worst piece of advice, I'd be wondering, how has advice and the role that advice has played changed throughout the course of your life, now that you're 3 years out from retiring?
Right? Oh, man. So just the first thing that comes to mind is, you should sell Mary Kay.
Like the makeup?
That's the worst advice I ever got.
The worst piece of advice.
And that is from my BFF of 30 years, Dr. Donna Carey. She was in med school, and I was either just finishing or in law school, I don't know. And she was so committed, and she is so enrolling as a personality. And she was like, just come and check it out. Okay, for those who don't know, Mary Kay is multi-level marketing. And they have some great products. Like, I'm not even knocking that. It's just that, when they sell you the products to sell, they've made their money. And then if you go on and make more money, that's good for them. So anyway, so I bought a bunch of stuff, and maybe 3-4 years later, I threw a lot out because it had gotten too old, and all my plans for packaging it never amounted to anything.
Noted.
In terms of how it's changed, I think what's changed is me. And so when I'm younger, when anyone's younger, I'll say for myself, I am someone who's willing to have an adventure. And I'm willing to give it a try. If it's not gonna hurt, what's the harm, right? So I've done a lot of things. And when people would offer advice, I tended to really take it in and chew on it. As I've gotten older, I'm less interested. And the main reason is because over time, discover who I am, and I know what I like. And maybe it's because I'm in the age of the internet, you know what I mean? Like I've lived without the internet, and advice was more relevant then, and then now I can look anything up if I need to know something, and I will whip out my phone and look up anything that crosses my mind. And so I still appreciate the advice of people, but what I have become is more discerning about whose advice I even listen to. And so if you are someone who's made money in stocks, I'm interested in what you have to say. If you broke, I'm not.
Makes sense. I think 1 + 1 is 2, right? Yeah.
Yes.
That's great. What you shared remind me of, there's this quote, it's really easy to boo from the stands than play on the court. For me, when I think about your journey and how I've seen you evolve in so many different ways, which has been an inspiration for me because it's taught me we're so much more than a title or a job. We are multi-hyphenate, multi-passionate individuals that have a very limited amount of time on this earth, on this planet, what have you. And one of the things that you just shared reminded me of some advice that you've actually shared with me in the past around, kind of similar to what you said, but why not try? Like, why not? You'll never know until you actually do it. And so something that I know you've shared, you've been so excited and passionate about in sharing, whether it's with students or anyone, is the beauty and joy of creativity, but just for its own sake. So I'd love to hear more about how you have arrived at that nugget of wisdom, I would say, and why it's so important to remain creative, to remain curious, and enjoying joy for joy's sake.
So the creative part fits into a larger context of, I love counting up a new challenge, you know? And the first one that I did that was related to creativity was 365 poems. I love words. I did take a creative writing class at City College, Long Beach City, I don't know, a couple decades ago. And so that's just a love. I'm not great at it. You know what I mean? Like, there's no Pulitzer coming for me.
I got it.
But I wanted to improve my writing, and literally there was a quote that showed up one day in my Facebook feed. You know how they give you the 2 years ago, and it was this quote from Richard Bach that said, I'm paraphrasing, you can have anything you want. You may have to work for it. I was like, I want to be a better writer. I'm going to write a poem a day for 365 days. You know, for context, folks, I'd been doing 30-day things. I was in the midst of 100 half marathons. So this is a thing for me. You know, it wasn't like just out of the blue. But when I did that, I also committed to posting each and every one. That meant the good, the bad, and the ugly of them. There were days when I'm busy and it's 10 o'clock at night. I got to post by midnight. Let's just see what we can pull out. There was so much fun in challenging myself every day. There was so much fun in discovering what I like. Oh, I love alliteration. Oh, what I don't like. Oh, I don't like I don't like to rhyme all the time, you know? Like, and as any poet, real poet, you know what I mean? But there was all this self-discovery is what I'd say. My writing also improved. I'm an emailer. Heaven knows anybody who knows me knows that. Just so the audience can know, Judith just kind of did one of those, oh, don't we? And so what I noticed was through a year of being creative and experimenting and sharing poetry for no reason, no trying to get into somebody's magazine, my other writing became much more concise, much more to the point, much more descriptive. Much more interesting. So then, once you start doing these kind of things, I had a little itch and I couldn't let it go. So then I did 365 doodles. And again, posted them every day. Again, good, bad, and some ugly, some really ugly, and some really beautiful. Now, I think that was 4, 5, 6 years ago that I did the 365 doodles. And since then, it's now become a meditative practice that I can do, but it's also become art that I've actually sold. I was privileged to have all my art posted up in one of my friends' homes when they did their, kind of returning to their home kind of thing. And I've gifted you.
Yes, you have.
I get to know myself better. I've learned what I like. I've learned how long I like to stick with something. And then I recently did the Inktober challenge, which I don't mind promoting. It's a nonprofit thing, but in October, you do a drawing a day. I saw my art grow leaps and bounds from doing one piece of art with a particular prompt every day for 30 days. And all of that came from just taking on 365 doodles. I mean, I've got some art up online now, and it's not about having it be a side hustle. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But the real value for me is being creative gives us an opportunity to discover not only who we are, but what we love, to share a different expression of ourselves with people than our career.
Ooh, I love that. I love how you see how creativity has been this short outlet. It sounds like autobiographical for you in some extent. What you're able to discover, what you're able to maybe lean into, things that you've noticed about yourself. It wasn't until, I don't think, around the time when we met, because you and I met in a time where I was just starting Inner Shoes. For those who are listening that don't know what Inner Shoes is, it's my nonprofit organization, and we're turning 10 this year. But I remember when I met you, I would have never thought of myself as creative, let alone a capital C creative. Mm-hmm. It's been through our relationship and our friendship and your mentorship where I've come to see life as the ultimate creative act. And so hearing you say that is affirming, I think, in a lot of ways. And it has me curious, as you're navigating these next few years, you just said you're inching closer and closer towards retirement.
Every single day.
Woo, girl, I am jealous. For me, I feel like I've been saying, can I retire? Can I retire? My back hurts, okay? My back hurts, I'm tired, I don't want to do this no more for quite some time. And you were on the precipice of this concept of a stage of life that I think a lot of us hear about, right? Or the context of what does that mean to be retired? I'd love to know, what does that mean to you? And as you're navigating this new season of change, this new season of transition, what's helping to keep you going through it all? For me, the last thing I'll say is I tend to get really tired when I'm that close to the finish line. Like I need that extra push. And I know I have like a 5K master sitting next to me. I'm so curious to get into your mind of what crossing this particular finish line looks like for you.
Okay, so I don't mean to correct my host, but
please do.
13.1 miles master.
There you go.
80 half marathons.
Listen, everyone. Correction.
20 more to get to 100.
Wow, 20 more only.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Rahbin.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I started that in 2000. My first one was October 2015. And in honor of it, I'm wearing my Long Beach Marathon because that was the first one, and I'm going to make that my 100th probably. I'm just going to say, so it's 13.1 miles, and I've done 80, and always at mile 11, why? Why are we doing this? You know what? Because, damn, but I can't even get to the car unless I finish. And it doesn't matter how many times. So I feel you on that getting tired near the end.
And this is me talking about a 5K. Before you corrected me, that is definitely not a 5K. It is a half marathon that you do.
I have a feeling there will be times like that. There are some things I would do at work that I already have handed over to the school secretary. Like I used to do some graphic stuff and I'm like, yeah, you know what, that's that. And then I do our little student of the month assembly and I've already told the dean, oh, this is my last year. So I love a wind down, and I am winding down. I love what you created at the beginning about what Imaginal Goo is about and that time between caterpillar and butterfly. When I started my career, I was becoming an educational butterfly, you know, and I got my national board teacher certification, and I did this, and I did that. And that butterfly is now a caterpillar again. I am in the Imaginal Goo of what will I be doing in my 60s? And you ask what keeps me going, the excitement of it, because, you know, I've done a podcast, about to do another one, I think.
That's right.
I've written a few books. I got another one in me. I just became a certified Scotch professional. Yes. And if y'all thinking, when she have time for all this? I don't know. I've got all these futures ahead of me. And 58, which I don't mind saying, it does not feel like I thought it would. Like I really feel like there's another butterfly inside of me that's getting formed. And I don't know, is she gonna lead Scotch tastings and travel all over tasting whiskeys around the world? Is that my retirement? I mean, it could be if the emphasis is on teaching about Scotch, because I can't get off the teaching thing. Or maybe it's public speaking. Or maybe it's like actually spending the time on a podcast and curating it, doing the shorts, doing all the work that I don't do now because I have a full-time job. And maybe it's something I don't even know. Maybe I'm going to become the world's greatest doodle artist. I don't know. And maybe I'm just going to sit on my behind and do Netflix and go to lunch with my friends. But whatever it is, when you ask, like, how do I get through it? It doesn't even occur for me as something I'm getting through. And don't get me wrong, because there are moments when I am very frustrated. Like, I don't know what's next. I'm tired of not knowing.
I feel attacked. Sorry. Just like, whoa. Wow. Okay.
Why did that land?
It did. It hit a little too deep, y'all. Okay. Not that that's me right now. Go on.
Look, I'm sure there are other people going, I know, right? Even in the frustration of like Imaginal Goo, that caterpillar, we don't know if it's conscious or if it's dreaming and sleeping, but I would imagine sometimes it gets uncomfortable in there and that there might be a little bit of pain that we just don't know about before it breaks through and flies away. And so there's all of that. I don't know if the caterpillar knows it's going to be a butterfly, but I do. So it's exciting.
Ooh, everything that you just shared, especially the part around you are turning into a butterfly again, and you're also turning into a caterpillar. What is in your mind and thought process? What is that next version and iteration of being a caterpillar and a butterfly lead to? And how did you get to the point where you are now, where you're able to confidently say, at 58 years young, I know I'm going to be a butterfly? Not even a doubt. Like, I got this. I think that's something that the human condition is constantly seeking for certainty. Like, we're human. We developed clocks. There are things like analytics to try to predict things. We try to control and predict the weather. So how did you, I guess I'm kind of morphing all these different questions into one of, what is that next iteration of being the caterpillar and the butterfly for you? And then secondly, how did you get to the point of knowing that you will be that?
That's a great question. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is that I'm fortunate and also have created through my actions, if I'm honest, a track record of completing things. I'm a completionist.
We love that. We love it.
The reason it's a certainty is because I don't know how to stop. I don't know how to not be engaged. I don't know how to, I got 4 different projects I'm working on at any given time all the time. They don't all go as far as they could, right? But they all go as far as I need them to feel a sense of satisfaction. I'm kind of discovering what my answer is, which is my definition of butterfly is being satisfied and at peace. That's fully within my control. For the listeners, please don't think I was born like this. Judith and I met in a program called Landmark, which is about personal growth and development. And I have done a lot of personal growth and development, and I continue to do it. I'm reading Robert Greene books, 48 Laws of Power last year, and Seduction, and so there's this ongoing commitment to discover, to practice, and to get to satisfaction. The gift or the curse for me is once I get to a level of satisfaction with something, I'm like, oh, that was cool. Okay, now what else can I get satisfied in?
I'm done. Yes.
Yeah. So that's a long-winded way of answering that. I do want to make sure there's time for me to ask you a question.
Oh, plot twist. Sure. You can ask me a question, and then I'm going to go into the last 5 rapid fire questions.
My question for you, you are doing a podcast.
I am.
I know you've watched me do a podcast. My question for you is, what's one thing about 365 Brothers that inspired you to make this difference that you're making with your podcast?
Oh man, what a juicy question. Classic Rahbin. For those who are listening, 365 Brothers is a podcast that Rahbin had launched and created many years ago. I think it's coming
2020.
on. That's right, 5 years. And it was also inspired by the state of the world that we were in. I think particularly in the context of 365 Brothers, I've always been so touched, moved, and inspired by the platform and quite frankly, the safe space that you've created and curated for each brother that you've brought on in a way that allows them to not only get to meet themselves in the conversation, but give a slice to the world of what it's like to be a Black man in America. I think we live in a world that is constantly growing to be that much more complicated and complex and polarizing. The timing of Imaginal Goo wasn't planned for that necessarily, but I think in a way, my hope and intention being inspired from your show is to create a similar space for women of color, to meet themselves in a way that allows them to be that much more courageous outside of these walls.
I love that.
So
I love
thanks
that.
for everything, I guess.
My pleasure.
Thanks for the inspo. Thank you for that. I never thought about that until now. Okay, I guess we'll go into the rapid fire questions
Bring 'em
before we
on.
wrap this baby up. So juicy. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you these 5 questions, and because they're rapid fire, would love to know first thing that comes to mind.
Done. Okay.
They're gonna be ad lib.
All right.
Okay, so the first is, I am so proud of myself for blank.
I am so proud of myself for knowing that 58 is a launching pad.
So good. I forgive myself for blank.
I forgive myself for nothing because nothing need be forgiven because all of it got me here.
Ooh, okay. Dear younger self, blank.
Dear younger self, use a teacher and it's okay and you loved it.
Dear future self, blank.
Dear future self, I really hope that you continue to fulfill on the things that bring you joy and that you never stop playing until literally God said, close your eyes.
And lastly, what is one thing you know to be capital T true?
What I know to be capital T true is that we as human beings are an iteration. We are one part of the Earth's evolution. Dinosaurs were another. We're gonna be here for a while, and then we're not, because that's how it is in time-space continuum. And it would be great if knowing that truth, We made sure we had more fun while we're here. Instead of, we want to survive, it's our drive. But maybe we don't have to put other people down for it. Just live.
Just live.
Just live.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much, Rahbin, for sharing your slice of imagination and inspiration for us. Thanks for being on the show.
Judith, thank you for having me. I asked the question I asked because I see you taking the baton and going with it from all the podcasts, from all your studies, from all your work, from your nonprofit. And my prayer is that this makes 10 times the difference that you intended to make, because if it does that, it'll be 1,000,000 times the difference that the world needs.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in. That's this episode of Imaginal Goo. We'll see you next time.